Hola, hola. I'm Trek with two Ks,
And I am 3D, and welcome to Metaverses the Other Side.
brought to you here on the Gentlemen of Crypto Network. Just a heads up, this episode is before we had the idea of bringing the Twitter spaces to the Gentlemen of Crypto Network. And so that's why we're talking about the stuff that we're talking about in this episode.
Oh, what is up, Trek?
And here it was. I thought I was talking. Okay, can you hear me?
I can. Hold on a second. It's bleeding.
Anyway, I'm like, where's that coming from? Is that on my side? I literally walked away from the other thing.
All right, now I got you back. How's your week been, bro, sis?
Semi-productive. Learned some things. I told you about the conversation I had with Samson over from Brave. It is always enlightening, and it was definitely helpful for what I needed done. Actually, this week was like X amount of the finishing of the Stacks Clarity cohort 4, which I am in. And yeah, that has been an interesting process, trying to learn this coding stuff and catch myself to stay focused, which has been even more of a process, right?
Yeah, most definitely.
Like I was telling you, like, for as much as I want to learn, it is X amount more frustrating when you can't put like X amount of the coding, at least in my take right now, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It is conceptual, as far as first you got to understand like what these words mean for their function and what they do, and then you got to remember it. And
yeah.
and so how do I say this? If I say like a screwdriver is something that you use to put in screws or take out screws, right? If you've never dealt with a screwdriver is the generic term for either a Phillips or a flathead, right?
Yeah,
And then
or a torque. Yeah.
so like it's getting that whole thing down and remembering like what a truffle is, or the difference between the balloons and like the different calls. And I'm just like, man, this is the path that you really want to go. This is where you really want to be at. And yeah, it is, because there's too many things that are frustrating me right now in the non-technical part of the space for the things that I hear people saying and what I see folks pushing as. I'll give you an example of something. On the technical side, I don't know if we've actually had this talk, but the idea that decentralization of your blockchain or of your Web3, whatever you want to call it, that is in relation to this side of the Web3 infrastructure or the Web3 projects or whatever, or really like the blockchain side of Web3 in relation to crypto.
Yeah.
There's the narrative of decentralization, which is being separated from the technical part of, but is it actually censorship resistance? Is there actual universal access?
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah.
No, but those are the things now. I thought about this today in a conversation I had. I didn't say this to the person, but I was like, wow, like I feel today was the first time I felt I'm nowhere near where I was in like 2018. I thought like I was like getting to some new understandings for 2018, 2019, 21, but I thought my like hump was like 2018, 2019. Man, where I'm at now, I don't want to say it's a 180, but it almost feels like a 180 because I'm not sharing everything blockchain. Decentralization is the end all be all, or the altruistic like narratives of Web3, the marketing side. He's like, oh, no.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling it. That doesn't technically make sense to me. Yeah, like that's where I'm at right now. Like when I thought about this today while explaining whatever I was rambling about to this person, it's like, wow, yeah, like this is the first time I've ever actually came to, I think I'm at a very different point for how I see this space. And I'm not as down for everything as I was before.
You know, that's a good aging statement, though. I just showed that you've been through a bunch. I've been through a lot of lows, a lot of crap. Because I see the people like in social media and stuff, like the ones that are like 100% pumped for absolutely everything. They haven't had no bad experiences yet. They haven't had their first rug pull, or they haven't had their first like 80% loss because of network hiccup or error or hack or something.
All right. You know what's even funny about that is it's not even about the loss of stuff. It's just about looking at like where we started in the quote narrative of the space, the ideals, right? Like where we started with that, and then just looking at where we are now. And I'm just like, what happened?
Yeah.
Did I show you that thing? about what was it? Crypto compliance token or crypto compliance something. Basically, somebody was,
Wow.
somebody wrote on LinkedIn about cryptocurrencies that were compliant for like the transportation stuff. I don't remember the whole thing. And I looked at it and I just got so annoyed. Like in my mind, I'm looking at this going, so you're telling me that the folks who actually went through the legwork to bring cryptography to the masses, to the public, we are then turning around as an industry and then trying to be like, yeah, the privacy thing, no, that doesn't really work anymore. It's about transparency and being able to see and know what everyone is doing at every point. And we're still going to call this like crypto, and we're going to call it compliant crypto.
Yeah. Well, see, like this kind of stuff, I see it as devs got to get paid. There's a lot of devs out there that they're used to making good money and stuff like that. So anytime they get a job, they'll take it. And what that causes is like stuff like this, like bullcrap, weird shit get made or whatever. And that's what changes the industry, so to speak, like the major part of the industry, the headliners and all that. That's what changes them, is those devs want to get paid. They need that money. Like even the Ethereum Foundation, what was it? It might've been 2018 or 2019. Ethereum Foundation tweeted a thing about being upset about something about with the network or whatever. And it was just right after the OpenSea or Ramble came out or something like that. It's like right after one of those came out, they were talking about how they weren't happy with it. And now look at them. Now they're on a full global system. And talking about like non-decentralized stuff, bro, like I commented on someone's thing about Ripple and I was like, from my perspective, it's a security. And if you look to their actual consensus model, they're centralized. And people were like coming at me and they were like, nah, bro, anybody can do a node. Anybody can do a node. And I was like, but one time you actually had to fill out a form and KYC to be a node for Ripple. You know what I mean?
Right.
So now they allow anybody, because they also allow servers to be ran. Like you can run a server, which I think you have to pretty much do the KYC to grow the server, right? But then people were like, there's 3% of the nodes is ran by Ripple. And I went to the consensus model, went to their entire consensus model, and they still have in the consensus model, they send out a file of what nodes to look at. And now in the consensus model, on top of that, because they allow nodes to be able to not use that now, they have it set up to where your node has to use latency as a figure on which nodes are more trusted. If they just have 4 nodes that are not within 4 clicks of each other, they can obtain 40% of network control, which is more than enough to prevent a fork. And it will, because like it actually said on their blog site that 40% control of a network will not cause a fork or whatever. And so basically they have a centralized consensus algorithm to ensure their decentralized network is always centralized with minimal amount of nodes. It's insane.
But okay. So no, what's funny on that is, but then when you try to explain to people like, this is what the issue is, because they don't technically understand the flip side of a 51% attack is X amount, you know what I'm saying? Because you don't understand some of the technical minutiae of what happens in a 51% attack versus if you already stack the situation of where you're controlling the majority of the infrastructure setup, like that stuff right there irks me. And then because like the new folks who come in, you don't remember the 2016 or 17 ads, like they flat out said they were for the banks. Now all of a sudden, oh, it's for everybody, it's for the people. Nah, dog. Like, I was here. I remember it. Like we laughed and joked about it. We had arguments about this shit. But
But a lot of people think that 51% attack is the thing, but it's like there's such thing as any percent attack. And there are some networks that you can actually do a 1% attack and shut the network down. That is all you actually need, a 1%. And with Ripple, when I was going through the math for the consensus, it is 38% is all you need to be able to control Ripple. You just have to have 4 nodes and 4 clicks that are they're outside of 4 clicks of each other. And a click is like they're all grouped onto a server. So 1 server click, right? Mm-hmm. And they have 3%, which is, I think it was like a couple of 100 nodes. So it's like they actually have a larger than 40%, but all they need is 39%. And they can keep control of Ripple. It's absolutely insane. But I see we got Christo and ACU in the house. What up, guys?
Yeah, what's up? What's up? Sorry, we got sidetracked.
Yeah, absolutely. But basically today is about hacking the metaverse. Now, Trek, you came up with this idea. Why don't you go ahead and run us off with some concept.
Okay. Hey, thank y'all for coming in. We appreciate. So what initially started this is I was talking to Bobcat and I forgot what we were specifically talking about. And I actually invited him here because he was the one who said the thing that triggered me to go, oh, I should bring this up to 3D. We should talk about it in relation to, oh, that's what it was. They're doing a hackathon, I think, at some point next year. And then I was bringing up the point of, well, like, all right, what would a metaverse hackathon look like? If you don't know, Bobcat works for Meta Builders. And so that is what generated that particular idea of what does a hackathon that is focused on metaverses, doesn't matter if you're blockchain or non-blockchain metaverse, but what would a hackathon centered around that look like? And the idea of, are we just talking about, generally speaking, if you don't know, for folks who listen to this later on, with hackathons is you give certain goals or objectives. Some things might be a puzzle, some things might be some kind of quest or something that they have to do at a technical side, or it could be, can you come up with a project idea that would serve some kind of utility? In this case, we didn't really jump into it too deep, but the question was, what would a hackathon for being centered around metaverses look like? What tasks would you give people to do in a metaverse? Or what kind of tasks would you give people to do in a metaverse that would count as a hackathon? What kind of bounties and stuff would you be able to set up? And again, this is not about being blockchain or crypto, but it's just about metaverses in general. And then we know that they fall into the two different categories. So arguably that makes even more of an interesting scenario of what can you do in a non-blockchain metaverse versus a blockchain related metaverse, and the same thing of vice versa.
Yeah, and I think these are some really great ideals because I remember when you first asked me that, I was like, yes, be like,
you stood off
who could remote control into another one?
Yeah, you stood off a couple of things. I was like, okay, you in.
And then I was like, what if you could say who could move a build quicker or inject data into like a metaverse? And I think that's the main difference right there is like, the blockchain metaverses, you can really only fuck with the front end, right? So you'd be injecting, you'd be like sending messages with script commands in the internal chat systems, or you would be trying to front load the actual website to be able to put a layer between you and them to actually do more, like still more data behind the scenes or something like that. Or you would be like, okay, you have a build in Minecraft. Now you need to go and rebuild it in the blockchain server version. And there actually is a Minecraft right now where they are still running the server through Ethereum. It's insane. So all their data saves are there. It's like super expensive server, but stuff like that though.
Okay, here's one that I don't know how much technical sense this makes, but all right. We were talking about the emulate joint that you could do let me back this up. So I was talking with Samson from Brave, and then this was based on a conversation we had in Lisbon earlier last month. And we got into the conversation about what me and 3D was doing in Uplift. And so I was talking to him this week, passing about some other stuff. And he was updating me that he was looking more into Minecraft because his kids build in Minecraft. I think they're on the Bedrock edition though. But nonetheless, he then told me about this program called Emulate, which basically allows you to do mods in plots. So JavaScript edition, the Java edition, the Bedrock edition, just a couple other things. And so it reminded me of what 3D has been doing, where we're pulling out the files from the Uplift metaverse that we build in for Spore Baby, and we're making 3D renderings of the building structures. So if you hadn't seen them, check out his profile. It's somewhere in there. I got some in mind too. And that's what got that whole idea running around. The point of what I was going to say about a different type of, here's a hack, or here's a question, here's like a bounty. One team sets up plots or one size, like maybe the 100 by 100 or the 250 by 250. I don't know if that would be too big, but the idea of you do a alteration, a mod of the landscape, and then you hide something in the landscape. The other team has to figure out where that thing is. Now, but you would need to use some modding platform. Emulate happens to be the one that I thought of, again, because of these recent conversations. And then the other team has to go behind. And it'd be like a different version of capture the flag. So
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? If the team who does the mod and they put whatever it is they put in there, the other team doesn't find it, y'all did a good job. They won. If the other team finds it, the other team finds it, so they won. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if there's like levels of that, but like that would be an example of something that I just thought of. And the same thing that you were saying about like the like putting in
injecting and stuff.
Injecting and stuff. Yeah.
Because I could see, okay, we're going to have this, make a known script title or a hash or something. Okay, you know what this is. We know what this is. Basically, I'm going to inject it somewhere in my game, but you can't physically see it. So that you would have to figure out how to get on the game, find me, my character, whatever, then remote execute into my character port to be able to get to the actual machine, to then be able to script the files to go, we found the hash, it is here. And then you go to that location to prove you know where it's at.
Yo, or even do a joint like a manhunt.
Oh, that would be so much fun.
Yo, okay. So if you can figure out how to put a avatar in a environment and you can verify that their profile account shows logged in, like rule is you can't hack being logged in, and then you can only operate within a certain amount of space. And that includes a Z access, right? And the idea is you have to, here's the not killer, but like another variation of, if you're doing the manhunt as far as being able to find somebody. So example of the one person has some hack within the profile for the visual presence of the character, right? So you have that hack, and then the counter is either individual or person. Yo, that would be another crazy ass game of capture the flag. If you were able to, you got to figure out hacking to make the visibility work. Not everybody gets to do it on your team. Let's say it's a team of 5, only 2 people get to do it. The other 3 have to stay visible. And then you only get X amount of space to operate it.
Bro, I would want to run like a server side on that to randomize who is invisible and who isn't, and they don't get to choose.
Ooh, yes. Yes.
Every 30 seconds, they flow by and caught. It changes.
Oh, yeah. That would be even better. Like, you don't get to keep the function. It automatically moves over to another player in your party.
Yeah. And then you can just be like, mathematically be like, oh, it needs to stay under 1/3 of players. So say you have 10 players, right? So it'd be like 3 or 4 or less. Say you got 3 players, it'd be like 1, you know what I mean? So it would then also dynamically change based on how many players are left in your team, making it more, if you had less players, it actually makes it easier for you to do whatever, because you have fewer players or whatever. But you know what I'm saying?
For sure. Wow. Okay. So what was the other thought I had? Okay. The first thought that I was thinking about was the whole thing of, if you had the manhunt, as far as you have to find the one player X amount of operation, there's a stay invisibility function. Right. And then the first thought I had with that one was, because you said the thing about getting into where the person is. Another hack would be, could you hack the Oculus system or some head-mounted system to be able to look in at your VR, your metaverse, whatever metaverse you're in, and then like, think of the Predator.
So like spatial mode? Like where you're there, but no one else can see you're there.
Okay. So something like that. But as far as, think of the movie Predator and how the whole thing of they were able to see in different spectrums.
Yeah. Oh, so like wireframe, maybe the code.
You see what I'm saying? So like, how would that look if you had a headset that you had to figure out how do you see in different terms, and what are the different spectrums for a VR environment?
Yeah, because then in something like that, I would be like, hey, bro, I just put a QR on this property and in voxels, but you can only view it in wireframe.
You know what's
free NFT, QR, wireframe. Oh, fuck.
Okay, wait. So you know it's another one? Okay. Do you remember? Okay. Have you read the book Snow Crash?
Nah, you bring it up a lot, though. Go on.
Okay. So in Snow Crash, if anybody's read the book Snow Crash, you know what I'm talking about. The thing that's going on is there is somebody there's an occult, right? Fundamentalist folks who they're pushing this. It's like a rewrite. And the way they tie it together is interesting in the book, but the bottom line is that this audio and this video combination, that if you see it when you're in like the metaverse, it basically just resets your whole brain in real world. So
So kind of like if Neo in the Matrix, when he sees the source, that would have, in the book, it would have just reset him, right?
in the book, but it would have reset them in a bad way. As far as now, you're just like mush brain.
Okay. So the snowball one, the snow frame one you're talking about, the snow crash.
Snow crash, yeah.
That's the one where it, as if you got no brain, like you got mush, or how does that one work?
So if I remember it right, it basically was it wasn't a QR code, but you said QR code, and that made me think of that. Because you remember how Ken used to talk about, like, at some point cameras are going to be so good that people can put QR codes inside pictures and your camera will scan it.
Just automatically see it, yeah.
And so that made me think of that in relation to, if you're able to see in spectrums within a VR environment, what is that? But then what else would you do in regards to the more like darker side? And then you said the thing about putting up an NFT, a QR code, but you can only see it this way. But it still gets into, what is the message transmitted? What are the instruction set transmitted once you do see it? Like the level of, hey, you know what this reminds me of? As far as we're moving in this conversation, it reminds me of Ghost in the Shell. And not
yeah. A lot of this is,
Now I feel like, I should go watch Ghost in the Shell.
Watch the movie first, though.
Wait, which one?
The original movie, bro.
Oh, okay.
Before Standalone Complex.
Okay, yes. Why am I looking in here? I'm sorry, I'm in the kitchen while I'm going through this space right now. Just want to say thanks, folks, for coming in. We do appreciate. But yeah, like,
we'll be opening the floor in a bit.
Yes,
people can talk.
So I know we are definitely like getting hyped in our own little way. Also, the techie things that I would argue, like, somebody is going to be questioning or testing these things out sooner than later. I give it in this decade.
Oh yeah. Because like right now you could put like payload script runners and payloads and stuff in the front end of something. So when a certain graphic appears on your screen, it would execute. And that could do, like with Minecraft, we saw it with the Java login bug, where basically you can do one weird script and it would automatically basically give you the ability to access the other person's device through their login system. And I mean, I've seen stuff where people would pass text and it would, with some kind of attachment for file opening, and it would automatically open up your notepad and add text into the notepad. And then I don't know if some Windows, the notepad, you can run commands. And then from there, they would get to, was it PowerShell or something like that? And then boom, that world was their anchor. But that kind of stuff right there, I think that's probably the more scary type of hacks you could do in a metaverse. And trust me, bro, I would love to see someone be like, all right, put in some texture pack on your front end and then see if we can infect the actual like front end of servers or whatever to or like someone who doesn't have the texture pack on be able to see or access that texture path, to be able to like run a layer wrapper or layer script in front between the player and the front end, where it basically just installs the shader pack on them without them knowing it and then implements it. So they just get like a glitch in their screen, or it just do one of the many loading processes in a metaverse. Boom, next thing, like all your graphics just change. I think that would be a badass, like you were saying, the flag game where you capture the flag or whatever, but in complete reverse, who could keep their texture pack integrated into the front end the longest. I guess that's old briefcase game, right? Who can hold the briefcase longest, who can hold King of the Hill or something like that. But yeah, who can hold your texture pack in the front end the longest? That'd be badass.
That's a good one. Yeah. Okay. Again, I just want to do some X amount of house cleaning. Tonight's thing is about metaverses meets hackathons. What would hackathons centered on metaverses, various objectives, various goals, various types of methods of either creating or trying to do things like capture the flag or who can hold the suitcase the longest. We're literally just spitballing ideas on things that could possibly be done in a metaverse some way now, some way probably a couple of years from now. Definitely, at least in my mind, not past this decade, people will start figuring out things and we're going to look back. I feel like this particular Twitter space is going to age well. I don't know if metaverses hackathons centered on metaverses will catch on per se, but I imagine that there will be folks that will look to do some pretty interesting types of hacks in metaverses, whether they be blockchain related or crypto related. Sorry, blockchain or non-blockchain related. I don't know, but if you listen from the beginning, we definitely ran off a number of ideas of things that could be done. Thank you for joining, by the way.
Clipping is always accepted, bro. Next clip lasts 30 days compared to the actual recording is only about 24 to 48 hours. Now, I just thought about this the way we're talking, bro. Like, what if someone could double spend an NFT asset long enough for two players in the same game to use it for something like, okay, I'm thinking of Diablo, right? You have weapons and shit. We got that chain origin, got weapons and shit. So what if we could, between the two of us, repeatedly, quick enough and whatever enough, so that way while we're playing the game, we both can own or be using that exact asset. So every time I go to swing, I own that NFT. And then every time you go to swing, you own the NFT. But there's only one NFT between the two of us.
Okay, so is that like a transfer protocol, or is that something like what? Dude, Nate, he brought the story up about the dude who was hacking the games back in the day. So my thought process on that is that where on the NFT side, depending on the smart contract you're using, is that something like a transfer mechanism or function call of an item? And oh my God, the other thought process is, how do you then write the action in the game to then be able to trigger the function call in the smart contract that is housing that NFT? And then like at that point, you got to then get into like microtransactions, because you're going to have micro gas fees, and none of this, that would have to be like off chain stuff, because there's nothing that moves fast enough for you to do that level of swapping back and forth.
No, I think it would be pretty easy. So I think that you can pretty much you can have it omnipresent in two wallets, right? And have it activated. The call for it would probably come through multi-sig. And then the transaction would be whoever was dominant in the multi-sig when the action took place. So the guest would be reliant on that party. That's one way that I would solve it pretty easily. But I think that because you also sometimes hear about people making fractional parts of NFTs. Okay. But that has part of it that's logged in. So there would have to be requirements like, okay, sharing a session token to make sure that you're playing the same game together. And that, because there would have to be security protocols in place, the permission tokens, but to allow this stuff to happen. Otherwise, all you're doing is adding a whole new shit ton of services. But that's what you'd want to see happen.
Okay, see, and it's funny, like my first thought process on that was, would it have been, and this would have probably made it way more complicated, but would it have been something like there'd be a hack mode or a feature that you turn on where, it's more complicated, because the way that I'm trying to find my earbuds right now. Logging in and out. This probably would serve better in another type of activity on a shared NFT token, where you were using a log in and out script, algorithm, or setup between the two players working off of the same thing, but it wouldn't necessarily work for the high speed activity. As far as if you're doing like a first person shooter or like a MMO kind of thing with like fast action time, right? It wouldn't work in that sense. Again, for the same issue that I said before, but they definitely had a good solution.
And that's just right. He's basically saying, what, the back end of not the actual game, but the actual asset on the chain, whatever. And he's right. That's like a smart move, especially with some of these chains having half a second block time, that could actually be possible on one of those.
Also, another thing is like this entire, like the very end of the game, so it's going to be a 10 or 15 minute round. This can all be an all-chain activity that gets settled up to the main chain at the end, which would lower fees and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Made that point. Thank you. I'm not like see, this is what I'm talking about. I probably could not have had this conversation in 2016 because I wouldn't have understood enough on the back end. And I'm not saying I understand all of it now, but I wouldn't have had the understanding of how to figure out, like, what are you doing on the back end as far as the code is concerned to make something like that happen.
Yeah. And then like nowadays, even compared to 2016, 2018, 2019, the tech for some of these blockchains are more simplified, more robust at the same time. So we can actually do a whole lot more. Now I know there's gotta be some metaverse games out there already where they only check your assets when you log in. And in that case, we could actually start a service where I log in, the NFT is sent to me, right? So like when I go to log in, I have to go hit a button for the request. Like he's saying a multi-sig and they're just requesting to send them between each other. That's super freaking smart because then, okay, just when I need to log in, I own it. And then we could eventually have an entire party of people in a game where we all have the same weapons and armor, but none of us actually own it individually. And that's some insane type of talk, but something probably more possible right now with tools or decentralized more, I think that would be more possible. Yo, Trek, what else would you be looking for in a metaverse hack or a metaverse hack?
Okay, so we thought about the bounties, thought about capture flag scenarios, thought about spectrum visibility. Okay, what was the other thing? So remember that I was telling you one of the issues that I'm seeing, I consider this an issue. Anybody who listens to this later on, I do consider this an issue. The way that privacy is being pushed to the back burner, being taken out of the pitch deck of this whole blockchain crypto thing as far as the utility goes. And I think this is like one of our initial Twitter spaces where we were talking about private spaces, private metaversal spaces. And I don't know how much, okay, so again, considering how things are moving now, at least for the stuff that I'm paying attention to, I think being able to do the private space inside a public space, like, what does that look like? And I'm trying to remember the name for this metaverse space that is used a lot by office corporate folks, where you can host like virtual presentations, meetings and everything. And they have this thing where you can do like sound barriers. So if you're talking with someone and let's say like, okay, so scene, right? You're in front of the building, off to the side of the building, there's a table with 2 chairs. If you and the person are talking, when you're quote inside that zone, you and that person have a private conversation so that if anybody else is walking by, you know how if you're playing on a regular game, Grand Theft Auto or whatever, like anybody standing around can hear whatever it is you're saying if they're close enough.
What is it? Let's break out with them. For the sake of the conversation, let's call it a breakout.
Thank you. But how would you make a breakout room in a public space? Basically, it's just hacking on making a breakout room in a public space or some kind of public thing like that, where the system couldn't see that you were there. Like that'd probably be a more higher level one, task wise.
I mean, I think I know how to do this one. Like any metaverse that's using an NFT system, they can actually have it set up to where if 2 players are within a certain distance of each other and they say you have a special NFT that's called the room or the breakout room and 5 people own it. Once 2 of us get close enough proximity, it would say, hey, run a script. We'd get a pop-up, say, hey, do you want to enter? Yeah. And we'd be able to enter. The second we enter that space, our avatars just are non-visible to the other players, like in the actual up front end, that's all it's going to go. It's going to change it from visible to non-visible. And then for us, it's the opposite. People actually in the breakout room, they can have it set up to where when you're in the room, either you see all of the players or you don't see all of the players. So you can actually have it set up to where you guys completely exit out of one metaverse into another, even though it's the same metaverse. And then the sound barrier, that's just a combination of the spatial audio plus permission layers. So you can actually put a permission layer on spatial audio. So you can say, hey, this audio is spatial, but these blah, 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 not everybody or whatever.
Yeah. I was saying the same thing. I was thinking the same thing with the mic permissions and everything like that. And then I was also thinking about having a simultaneous for privacy, doing almost like a layer 2 lightning channel between the people that have the token that wants privacy, but then still have them be able to monitor on the main chain and just have those 2 audio feeds coming simultaneously. And that way you can toggle dominance. Do you want to hear the background noise more? Do you want to drop it lower? And you might be able to do something that way. And I think that there's probably going to become a day in the very near future where you can preset those settings and just have them happen naturally, where it's like when you're watching a movie and then all the actors are mic'd, and there's also the boom mic and all the other microphones in the scene. The one guy walks up to the other guy at the bar, and you have all the bar noise, and you hear the glasses clanking and the chatter and everything. And then when he sits down and starts a conversation about taking out some hit on somebody or something like that, then it's just like all vocals. So it's going to be similar to that, right? I think that you would have presets and everything, and it could be, like you said, permissioned, or it could be like a layer 1, layer 2 that work on presets.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I was also thinking of like config files, man, like having those config files where you can swap like hot swappable configs. So when you're in certain scenarios, you could get those spatial layers changing automatically. I do that ideal. I'm sorry, Jeff, for interrupting.
That's a good point. What was the other one that I was thinking about? You know how like all of the not Ethereum, but like the whole, we have to be interconnected and we need bridges and blah, 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 blah. So another variation on making the private space and a public thing, or a private space and a private space, but more so, could you make a metaverse? How am I saying this? And I'm not saying this as breakout room, but like you're in it. Actually, no, this already counts. It's already done. The DeFi Kingdom is doing their variation of it with Harmony and Avalanche. And then I don't think this is the way that, what's the name of them? Uplift did their thing with
Mind Test and Minecraft.
Uplift did their thing with the Ethereum chain.
That's only that counts quite the same, because what they're doing that actually is the bridging is not like what you're thinking. It's just their servers interconnected and they allow more than one social connection.
Okay. Would it be more appropriate to say making a space of another chain in one chain?
Yeah, that'd be what's up. So like we have, say, for example, I think Nathan already pointed at this a little bit, where say we have the main room, the room metaverse on Ethereum, and then we just run the transactions on Poly. And then we want to do like a subverse or internal metaverse of the metaverse. We would drop down to, what is that? BSC. And then that way, the more transaction heavy stuff would be cheaper transactions. And then the more secure stuff is on Ethereum. And then we can separate our input output by blockchain, by room. So it's like we could jump into the main room with our NFTs, right? Load it up, load the data through Ethereum, just pay the cost, get all the data up sync, right? And then you start your space and you go, okay, now I want to open up a doorway into a BSC. And then in that doorway, you could have all your BSC assets could be automatically generate and post because it's through your wallet. And then you could like have a server connect in where your wallet address is basically like the room channel. Okay. And then the actual rooms themselves, those unique IDs will be that session ID and the link system for the API. And then it's just like you share that out. And then as people go in, they all sync up, they run off of your dime basically. And then, because that's when I say your dime, like on your previous transaction, they get synced up. They're basically locking into your node. You'd have to have a node or something. They lock into your node. They go them off for you so they can then run the front end, like on a browser, something lightweight. And then boom, now they have access to the main channel you have, plus the room or door that you opened up. And then if they're in there and they want to open one up, they could pay transaction to whatever chain that boom, open up another door. Something kind of.
That sounds doable.
Can I hop in on this?
Sure.
All right. All of the platform level tools necessary for this, Komodo has actually been working on for other reasons for a long time. So Komodo has the atomic swap DEX, which is fantastic. And we all know what the attributes are of atomic swaps and of DEX. More importantly, they have the delayed proof of work. The delayed proof of work was they take everything that happens on their chain and they'll take the block and they'll publish the hash to that block and the contents of what happened in it to the Bitcoin blockchain. When the Bitcoin blockchain got inundated and got more expensive and it got a little too clunky and backed up the transactions and everything, they decided the hash rate on Litecoin is more than sufficient to keep up with 51% attack. And they started doing this delayed proof of work, as they call it, on the Litecoin blockchain. And you could very much do something similar to that. The beauty of adding in the layer of a DEX is you don't really have, since everything on a DEX is atomic swap wise, peer to peer, you don't have to worry about creating all of these taxable events. And a lot of stuff happens in order books offline. And so this way you could have a whole lot of activity happen and then publish it for redundancy in much more secure places after it happens. Is this necessary for gaming posterity? Maybe when it comes to stuff like contests and any type of tournament, but maybe as far as if you're doing team play or something, but as far as like single player action, I think that you could probably still stick with off-chain stuff.
Yeah. We have in a previous episode talked about like the best scenario use case for blockchains with metaverses is normally as like asset barrier, asset holder, and then the actual save data. So whenever you save your game, that data being stored to the blockchain and your name, your wallet or whatever. But yeah, now for the thing I'm talking about, like that was just like a long case use scenario, whatever. But yeah, I do think a lot of the front ends that exist don't need to actually be on chain or anything, but it would be nice to be able to say, hey, the data to compile it is on chain. Just pull it, compile and run, and then just have a, this is disconnected front end, and you just basically run a node as a server to compile those together so everyone can match up a little, sync up and stuff. But I do like the idea of some of these faster chains having a better utility. Now that when you're talking about with the going on Litecoin, I didn't even know they had done that, because I remember when they first came out a long time ago, and I do like the idea of running a DEX. What if like doing trade player actions, we're actually trading tokens instead of NFTs at all. And then you could actually run like, okay, this person has 7,000 hits in his wallet because he's got 7,000 of these specific tokens. And then what if you could do delayed transactions? So you do a bunch of actions in the game and then at one batch, proof all your sins. So a bunch of different things there. Then you go, okay, if we're going to be transacting per action or something like that, how could we hack that? Could we go as far as being able to say, like, I could submit a batch of transactions to play my running for my game, and it'd be like getting a flash loan or something almost, where it's like, I just flash loan, get these tokens, run the tokens through to automatically batch a transaction, to do all these actions, to get all these rewards, to automatically batch sell those rewards, to get the currency DEX, swapped it over to what I needed to repay my flash loan and end up with overage. Could we do something like that?
Well,
What you're looking at is you're looking at a model that is a little more akin to how Vegas poker players are funded. You're talking almost as gaming as a profession at that point. And again, it's at what point is it entertainment and at what point is it for gain? Because we know what happens when it's for gain.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then, okay, if you're going to put liquidity on a gamer, which is essentially what you're suggesting, be it via time or be it via actual assets, then you're doing it for gain. And now all of a sudden you're going to get Gary Gensler breathing down your neck. You're going to be creating taxable events. And it's insane because, all these people think with Web3 that they're just centralizing all this stuff. And so no, you're very much centralizing everything onto a public ledger in a very nice, tidy place for the predators to come and tax you and pry and steal and probe and audit and bother. I'm just watching this entire utopia of alleged decentralization really causing a lot of nasty problems for people that just pretend that they're not feeling the pitting and pretending it's not happening. The taxman is not a bad man. The SEC isn't a bad group. They're not out to get us. And that's just very much not the case. And if you're going to involve Division, or if you're going to involve Rockstar, they're going to look at this and go, absolutely not. This is so stupid. Why would we want to do this to our players? Why would we want to do this to ourselves? For a business, this is a horrible proposition.
You're not wrong there. This is why the first metaverse connected blockchain game was done on XMR by Philip. He did that little sub gaming between the 3D game and Monero blockchain. But you're absolutely not wrong at that. But people who are like indie developers and stuff, they're probably more the people that would take advantage of this, because they're also going to be more the people like, yeah, so what if they try to come for it?
Yeah, but the idea is the value comes from the in-game assets, right? So I want the sword that used when at this tournament, they went through this dungeon, they like got this record, and I want that sword, and I'm going to pay all this money for that NFT, and I'm going to use it when I go to that dungeon to fight that monster. And the entire idea is, okay, what's it going to cost for the transfer? What's it going to cost for the validation of the asset? Is there going to be a rule put in place where if you want to use it in game, then it has to sit on like the Xbox exchange or it has to sit on the PlayStation exchange? We don't know. We're going to be at the mercy of these developers. And it's going to be important that everybody understands they're going to be at the mercy of these development labs, because the indie blockchain gaming thing has been around since Satoshi dice and it hasn't gone anywhere. There's not that much money in it. Star Atlas looks absolutely insane, but Star Atlas isn't Diablo 4. What's the expect? Yeah. So I'm looking at this from both of you know me, right? And maybe some that are listening don't know me, but I come from this angle of what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to just force blockchain into gaming, or are we trying to create a little freedom here?
Yeah. Because in the case that I was talking about what are instead of NFTs, but actual like individual coins. And that would be forcing gaming into crypto. But I was also trying to think of what would the shortest route to doing a all on-chain game, because there are some games already 100% on-chain. But what would be the track route to hacking that style of game? But yeah, you're right. Like for a lot of things that's going on in the gaming with crypto, like you're talking about, how would we handle that? How would big gamers or big companies handle it? They'd probably do a coin purse. Remember in Darknet, you get a coin purse, you send money to it. Once it's verified, you can spend that almost like a debit card or something on that side, whatever, right? So they would have to probably do something like that. And then you could do stuff like nowadays on Ethereum, you can do liens on NFTs where basically you can have a programmatically locked NFT because a contract is overseeing that NFT's transaction movement. And that's where the lien comes from. So you can actually rent out. That's how a lot of the fractionalized ones work. Is they put it into an line and then they're able to handle all the little back-end stuff without heavy transactions, and you can make non-taxable events where they work.
I'm very optimistic about non-custodial stuff. We've seen between NFTs and DeFi, we have seen insane draining events. We've seen in governance tokens, insane, just huge wallet draining events. It's not safe. Like gaming definitely should be, without a doubt, a self-custody, undoubtedly. So I could say, okay, I have my wallet. Every once in a while, I can sync my wallet to my account to verify with Xbox or PlayStation or whomever that the contents of my wallet are my wallet. They can demand that I have to update it weekly to verify that I have those specific assets. They can have an auto checker through the blockchain that doesn't appear to anybody else's wallet, or else the discrepancy has to be settled. There are party counterparty settlement things in place that are already very simple.
Well, yeah. Now keep in mind, like on Ethereum, most NFTs, all the transactions are handed to another contract, right? And they already have steps where I can hold my NFT and sell out part of it and never lose it unless I end up breaking the bond of the contract, whatever. But the contract that actually handles the transactions of my NFT actually can control my NFT in that manner. So that's how they do the liens, where it is self-custody done. So, and Wax does have a lot of self-custody stuff now where there's better staking systems for NFT gaming where you are still holding it. You're not actually getting rid of it anymore. So that is totally a thing.
All right. Now, another thing, and this would be really good research for you if you're passionate about this stuff. The guy that Trek was talking about earlier that I had speak in Denver, he hacked under the name Manfred. And you should check it out, because he was hacking in-game virtual currencies for 25 years now. And he's doing a lot of work in blockchain and crypto and stuff like that. But the guy was absolutely notorious. He's responsible for most of the most famous server rollbacks in all your favorite MMORPGs. And there was somebody back in May who made a little fan video about him that's pretty current and up to date and covers him really well. And it's titled, if you want to search on it, "The Man Who Ruined Your Favorite Video Games." And when I say it was like major stuff, he rolled back like Ultima Online, World of Warcraft, Anarchy Online, like a ton of major games that were out at the time. And so he did the talk. He did the talk where he talked about what it's like hacking virtual currencies. He did it at DEF CON, he did it at RSA, and he did it with me a couple times. He also did a talk, I had him do it for the Nexus conference, where he goes through in details what goes into time-wise, resource-wise, and talent-wise into carrying out one of these hacks. Cause like you see in movies, clickety clack, okay, I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in reality, there's road bumps. It'll take 6 months, 9 months, new account, 55 new accounts. Okay. New bank accounts associated with them, right? $5,000 deposits. Oh, and so to get a real idea of what goes into stuff like this and where the term hacking comes from, how they just will not fucking stop hacking at something until it breaks. It's very incredible. And quite honestly, there's nothing in crypto or blockchain that can withstand the tenacity and the desire of these people to break stuff. And which is fantastic. And talk about the ultimate pen testing.
Absolutely. No, and I will look this guy. I think I remember Trek telling me about this guy originally. I think it was from one of your talks though. And I totally will check it. 'Cause I do remember the World of Warcraft rollback that you're talking about. And
Send you a link, all right?
oh, I already got it pulled up.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I typed it in as you were saying it.
So if you look at the Vice motherboard article, right? That was right after he gave his DEF CON talk. It's taken from the back of his head and he's wearing a big hat to cover his face. So he had done this on stage and one of the gaming labs, I'm not going to say which, reached out to him and said, we want to talk to you. And people get arrested every year at DEF CON. He's shit. I'm getting shit canned. So he wanted to go down and talk to them and clear the air and make everything okay, but he don't want to get shit canned. And he knew Vice wanted to do an interview with him. And he was like, okay, if I meet them in a public place and I bring journalists, then I should be safe. So he gets Vice to come down. He goes to meet with this gaming lab and he gets the picture taken to like document the entire thing. And that's why it's taken from behind and he's not visible all in the picture. And that's the photo they used for the cover photo of the article. It's fucking funny as shit. It looks like the most unassuming picture, but it has like the gnarliest, most tense backstory.
Man, that is badass.
Funny. And it's video game hacking. Who gives a shit, right? In the scheme of things.
Yeah. Yeah. But then again, just throw off for video game hacking, the people that hack Nintendo systems and games, they actually go after them sometimes. So it's funny how something so small is actually so much bigger than you realize. Wow, this guy sounds badass.
It's really funny because hacking is a very important thing to talk about because it's something that really needs to be discussed a whole lot more in detail in the crypto and blockchain space for there to be any maturation. And there needs to be some serious fucking maturation in this space before it can go anywhere. And it's something that I'm always at the ready to talk. So anybody wants to schedule something or anything like that to talk more in depth, specifically about security, the nature of the space, what it needs to understand better, actual vocabulary and the clear definitions that already exist, more than happy to chime in on anything with a little preparation, a little time, a little notice.
Dane, that is what's up, bro. And this is being, of course, I'm sure people who listen in will be able to contact you here on Twitter with your DM. And I think you have a website, right, too? I'm going to go ahead and show that out.
I have no idea if it's even up anymore. I don't give a shit.
Oh, okay. All good. But yeah, here on Twitter, go ahead and give them a contact if that is something you need. And I will keep that in mind too, bro. So
absolutely. Hey, it was good talking to everybody. Always great conversation. And I'm going to get out. All right. Have a good night.
All right. Thanks for showing up. Have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Damn it. All right, Alexa. Nonetheless, thanks for coming through, Nate. At this point, like just sitting around Nate and then watching the people that he interacts with and how the conversations go, like you can learn so much stuff. And it's not even just the blockchain thing. It's like in tech in general, he knows a number of interesting people, a number of them.
Yeah.
All right. So we are a couple minutes past the hour of 9. And if you don't know, for those listening to this later on, the idea is that we do an hour of conversation on this topic. And as you heard, we jumped around a bunch of different things. Things to note is we're not financial advisor folks. We're not lawyer folks. We're not telling anybody what's legal, what's not legal. We definitely are in our own little individual ways, lovers and hackers of technology, especially for what we see going on in this metaverse space, this blockchain space, this VR world, this thing called Web3 as it is marketed. And we are about people having the ability to have their digital sovereignty. Throw that one out there. A lot of folks don't use those two words together for whatever reason in this space, or at least some of the places that I'd be at, they don't. And so if you don't know 3D and myself, we host these things every Thursday now at 8 p.m. And we come up with different things to break down or explore and
as you listen to the beginning part of this through our little, oh, I was thinking about this thing, I was thinking about that thing, way of exploring the topic, right? And I don't say that to say this is the only way to think about this stuff. I imagine there's things that we didn't even cover or tap on or go far enough in on that could be brought up about metaverses and having hackathons that are centered around hackathons centered around metaverses and the different types of things that you could do in a hackathon. Hopefully we'll see, like in the coming years, does this grow to be a thing?
Absolutely. I think we've only had,
Go ahead, sorry.
it's all good. I think we've only had one that went over really far, but I like when, like Nathan, for example, he's super fucking smart. And I even think at first about the offshooting the transactions onto another chain until he said it. And then I was like, oh shit, well, if you could do that, then you could do pop-up doorways to other things, and you could do pop-up servers. It's like, oh shit, like ideal. But we've already had one website come out just from these talks. The Metaverse Toolbox is out there, and I'm reviewing Amulet to see about adding it in. Didn't add in Lidica or any of these other ones because those require you to use another application or whatever that on top of the application you're trying to use to access the status tools. I just don't really agree with so much. But this one, I've been playing with it. It seems fun. And with the ideal of how we can attack these different things, people can actually design stuff, whether it's guards, protection, but even applications to do stuff. Like imagine one day being able to just load up an application and be able to like fully adjust the metaverse you like to play in to exactly how you want to see it. And it'd be any metaverse that you can access type thing where you could just run these front loader ins, whatever, and stuff like that. Like just the ideals that could come from these are a lot greater when you're thinking of like, how could you break it? That's normally how you figure out new ideals or new ways you could use a system. I remember the first time someone did a flash loan on Ethereum, the internet went nuts. People were talking like crazy. The guy made, what was it, like $250,000 in 7 seconds or something like that. And then he resold it, and within the same 7 seconds, and then I think he earned a couple $100,000 from profit, just 7 seconds on arbitrage, basically. And it's insane what kind of stuff people come up with when they figure out, hey, there's a loophole here.
Yeah, this is the stuff we're talking about, exploring the hacking, the figuring out how it works stuff. And that's basically what we're doing in this thing. And if you didn't get it by now, me and 3D work at building in these spaces and offering educational resources as well as webinars that we do on a monthly. At the end, right now we're on like the 30-day thing. So at the end of this month will be another one, and we do the whole intro. We don't get into all of the techiness that we did here. This was definitely a lot more involved than what we would talk about during our intro webinar. This would be something more on like the masterclass like side of it, is you already know the basic stuff about wallet management and passwords and public keys and all of that stuff. So that's what that conversation would be like. But this is one of the things we do. We build in the Uplift Metaverse, design and build. So we come up with structures, we come up with design plans, and then we build them out. And we come up with some other interesting things too. Like I said, we're doing the 3D models that are pulled out of the Uplift Metaverse, which is the Minecraft ecosystem. And yeah, we're doing stuff like that right now. There's like a number of other things that I imagine we haven't even fully delved into yet, but we will get there. If you're somebody who's looking to understand how to build in metaverses, whether blockchain or non-blockchain related, like 3D mentioned, we have the Metaverse Toolbox, and that is basically open source and free various tools. So some stuff is dropped down on how to build a DAO, how to set up a smart contract, or how to, create an NFT. Depends on what it is you're trying to do. So it's low code, no code, and ready code options. And so, yeah, we're trying to get people educated, but we're also doing the work that we're talking about. We're not just twiddling our thumbs. Yep. Yeah. We're at 15 past now. So nonetheless, thanks for sticking around, folks.